All right. Well, like I said, thank you for joining this webinar this afternoon. I am not, let's see, I'm operating this webinar by myself here, so be a little patient with me if anybody's jumping into the chat. I'm not, so it was originally going to be me and my colleague Kristen. She's not able to join, but I would like to say thank you again for everybody taking the time to join our webinar here. Uh, I'll be going over a case study with about shed insulation. And so the title of our webinar here is Cut Costs by 70%, the game changer for insulating sheds. And again, this is a case study that we'll be looking at here regarding one of these insulation products that we manufacture. But feel free to ask questions along the way. Just to go over our agenda here, we'll look at who is Tytan. This is our brand. We'll look at some of these traditional technologies that are used for this sort of project, and then we'll look at our thermospray insulation, and then kind of look at a cost comparison versus the other technology. A little bit about the technology or the science behind it, and then we'll look at some cost information too. So just a little bit about us. We're Tytan Professional is our brand name, but our company is called Selena. We are a single source manufacturer of sealants and adhesives. And so you can see our product range here. We make a bunch of these one component canned foams. You can see a couple types of fire block, window and door foam for sealing up windows, an RV and automotive black foam that's used on the undercarriage of RVs, the thermospray product that we're talking about today. You can see that's a part of our foam sealants category. And then a couple other types of foam adhesives that are used for different trades, for framers or drywallers. And then we have a mastic duct sealant that we make too. And so, yeah, this is who we are. So getting into this topic, I'll jump into it here. The webinar is probably going to be about 15 or 20 minutes long. We'll see how long it takes for me to get through some of these things, and if you have any questions. So just about the traditional two-component foam kits. So when you're going about insulating one of these sheds, right, and the project we'll be looking at was like an 8x12 shed, so kind of a medium size, but if you're looking for spray insulation, you might go to your local kind of big box hardware store, and you come across these traditional two-component foam kits. And just a second here. When you're looking at these two-component foam kits, basically when I say there are two components, literally there's a part A and a part B. There's two of these tanks. They kind of look like propane tanks that would go into your grill. But there are two components, a part A and a part B, that mix together in the hose there that you see. And basically you spray them on the wall, and there's what they call an exothermic reaction, and the foam kind of builds up and it insulates whatever the space is. You can see they're also made, the two components, they're typically polyol and isocyanate, or maybe other components, depending on exactly what the application is or what the intended use is. Maybe there's more like fire stopping type chemicals included or something. It just depends on the type of application, and then the ratios of part A and part B might impact the closed cell count that impacts the insulation value. But you see these kits, typically they're used for insulating walls, kind of like we're describing, maybe a roofing application, or used in manufactured houses or warehouses. And typically these kits are packaged in like a 250 or 650 board feet kit. And when I say board feet, that's literally a 12-inch by 12-inch square that's 1 inch thick. And so that's considered a board foot. And so they're typically packaged in that kind of size range where it's made to cover 250 board feet or maybe 650 board feet. They have even bigger rigs, as they say, for these, where literally you can see in this picture, these are like 55-gallon drums. You can get that sort of application as well, where they bring in a truck and these tanks are on the truck, and you're dragging the hose all the way into the building and spraying it that way. So there's kind of smaller ones that you could buy at like a Home Depot or a Lowe's. But then there's bigger ones that kind of professional insulation companies use. And I see a lot of these being used in sheds. And so we're talking about a case study here of where you could save a lot of money switching from this technology. But just to give you a little bit of background information, when I talk about traditional two-component kits, this is what I'm talking about. This two-part spray foam. So getting into the cost of these traditional two-component kits, you can see these are just screenshots from the Home Depot website. You can see that there's the 210 board foot kit here costs about $457, and then the 650 costs over $1,000. So you can see basically what their yield is. So right in board feet, like I described before. But you can see the cost per foot is $2 or maybe about $1.50. This is the cost involved. If you're calculating the cost of a certain job, you would kind of use this method to calculate that. So if you're insulating sheds or something, you might be calculating the square footage and how many of these you would need. And so we'll get into that a little bit more here. But you can see there's also some like hidden areas of hidden cost areas, I would say, or areas that you might be wasting a little bit of money. So again, they're packaged for these sizes, right? 210 board feet, 650 board feet. So areas that you might be wasting a little bit of money, what if you have a job that's smaller than 200 board feet, where you're not using the whole kit? That could be a problem where you've got some extra material inside these canisters. And typically where people start to have problems is when I used about 80% of this and I'm going to save it for the next job. Well, the problem is that you're going to have, these hoses that you could see on that previous screen. The polyurethane inside there starts to cure, just like it does on your wall. And that becomes a problem where now the hoses are all seized up, and you're going to have to like change out the hoses or maybe change out the canisters. I'm not really sure what you would have to do there, but you're going to have to scrap something. And so when those kits or lines start to seize up, and this is the top complaint for this sort of technology, you start to have a problem. You felt like you were saving some money, but actually you end up wasting some of that money as well. And these are not, user-friendly type applications by any means. They're kind of a DIY friendly. They are not. So there's kind of an art to turning part A and part B, getting the ratio quite right whenever you're turning them on. So that can be a problem. So just a little bit about our ThermoSpray product. It's a easy spray insulation that comes in one of these one component cans. So if you've used kind of gap filler foam, you can use this sort of product. It's very, very DIY friendly. You can replace or repair those two component foams with this product here. And you can drastically reduce your costs, which we'll look at. But it's a thermal and acoustic spray foam. It's got sound blocking properties. It's got all the air barrier and vapor barrier type testing that you would need for some sort of professional insulation application, which may not be necessary for a shed, but if you're trying to deliver some level of quality to your customer or whoever the owner of the shed is, this is something you could kind of add on there. So getting into a case study, we'll look at an area where I applied this product. So let's see. So I applied this in my shed, and I'll show you some more pictures here. But literally in my shed, it's an 8x12 shed, so it's kind of medium size. I wanted to insulate it and start to use it more, so I cleaned it out. The shed has never been this clean. I cleaned it out really well for this project. So basically, the way our product works is you apply it to one of these foam guns. If you've ever used like a PU foam gun, it's very easy to use. You screw the can on there and pull the trigger. It's got a little tip spray applicator thing that goes on the end that makes it fan out. But you can see I'm spraying the wall here. My dog was interested in the project. I started spraying it, and then he kind of backed up, I guess. I don't know, but Barry is my dog. He was into the project. He was curious why we were in the backyard. But here you can see it kind of close up. You can see I sprayed these walls all around. And then on the right there, you can kind of see the finished application. But it took me about an hour. If you had two guys doing this, we make kits for this that have like two guns in it. You could definitely do this sort of thing in 20 or 30 minutes. It'd be very, very simple. Okay, so here's kind of the meat of our presentation here. So the case study. So let's just think through the costs involved in this and why you would save 70%. So I've got the 210 board feet kit, the 650 board feet kit, and then our thermospray can here that's 21 board feet. So you can see here I've got these three options kind of lined out here that with their coverage in board feet, which again, just as a reminder, that's the 12 inches by 12 inches square that's 1 inch thick. So I calculated my shed to be between 315 and 320 board feet. And so you can see my coverage for the project was 315 feet was what I needed. So therefore, here's the number. I use thermospray on the project, obviously. But here I'm doing some comparison math with the 650 kit and the 210 kit. So let's say you were doing such a project just like this, and you were like, okay, I'm going to use two of these 210 kits, right? Because I need 315 feet. Therefore, I would need two of these 210 kits. Or maybe you have a 650 kit, so therefore you would only need one. And so therefore you're going to have some amount left over. So here's what you would pay. And I added in a little bit to our number here because you need to get one of these like $20 gun applicators. But then I calculated about 15 cans for my project, and that's what I used when I applied this just about a month and a half ago or so. You can see here's the cost at MSRP, $300 if you use thermospray, $1,000 if you use the 650 kit, and $914 if you use two of these 210 kits. And so you can go back and look at the math or look it up on Home Depot's website yourself. But this is what the cost would be. And so you're going to have material left over when you're done with this project. With ours, with the thermospray, you can use exactly as many cans as you need for this project. So you don't have any left over. With the 650 kit, you have about half of that canister left over. And again, you're going to have some other costs involved where your lines are going to seize up or the canister seizes up or something. Same with the 210 kit. You'd have about half of that second canister that you bought left over, or about half of that. And so if you were to switch to thermospray from here, you can see you would save about 70%, right? If you, from $1,000 as your cost down to $300, or $914 down to $300. You would save about 67 to 70%, depending on how you're applying it and the size of your project and all that. But you can see in this case study example of me applying it in my shed, I saved about 70% by using thermospray instead. So getting into the science behind it, and I won't get too nerdy on you, but basically we make a couple of claims with this product, right? We call it a sound blocking foam. We say that you can repair and or replace 2-component foam systems. And so we've got a couple of third-party lab testings that we've done with this, and they essentially match they match the rating of the 2-component foam systems. So you can trust that, with the convenience of ours. So that this picture on the left here was some of the lab testing that we did. You can see that they're doing like an air barrier test here where they blow air through it, or they suck air back through it, I guess, and they measure how much air makes it through. But you can see we meet those standards with this product without having to have all that extra stuff that comes with those 2-component kits. So, like I said, if you can use just a gap filler foam, or if you've ever used like fire block foam or window foam around windows, you can use this product. It's very simple. If I'm able to use it, so I'm sure you can use it. But you have like that level of quality and like third-party testing that professional insulation contractors need, and that's a big bulk of what we do for our user base. Is a lot of it's professional insulators, but I think they would really people that are insulating sheds would also find this sort of product beneficial, and so that's why I'm doing this webinar today. And then the ease of use for most users. So you're not having to like carry those big clunky canisters up into the attic or something. You can just have a little can. It's a 29-ounce can that you can just bring up with you, and it's very, very simple to use. So looking at a quick cost comparison here. So we've looked at the cost of this project. But if you want to kind of step back a little bit as well and just think about, okay, well, let's just look at the cost per board foot, it's also significantly cheaper. You can see your kind of 2-component kits are kind of in that $150 to $250 range. Ours is at 90 cents per board foot, just at MSRP. And then we've got some competitors out there that make similar products. Great Stuff has a product that's similar. You can see their yield is only like 10 board feet, but then their cost per board foot is more than double what ours is. And then you can see we have a competitor called Kraken that makes one as well, and their cost is also higher. There's other things I could list here too, like the density and some other things about our foam, which the more density, the more insulation typically. And so ours is one of the most dense on this list here when you think about these other 1-component foams. So areas where you'll really save money is in your cost per board foot. That's lower. It's better for small jobs, like I already mentioned, and then you have that like third-party testing that I already listed. So looking at, again, just a quick review here. It's very easy to use. You're not wasting money on these small jobs. You just use the number of cans you need. If you buy, like our products come in cases of 12 cans. So let's say you needed like 5 or something. Those 7 cans will keep, you don't have to use them. You can just keep them stored. You're not worried about them seizing up on you or however you want to say it. You could just keep them in your storage or something. And then again, like I said, the cost is lower per board foot. So that's another thing to consider. So that's all I have for the webinar regarding the content goes. I encourage you to check us out. I do post a lot of videos on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. And so I encourage you to check those out if you're able. And then, like I said, we do produce a bunch of other foams and adhesives as well that you can check out. And we were talking about the thermospray product, like I mentioned. Thank you, Kyle, for your comment. I appreciate that. We're talking about that thermospray product, like I said, perfect for replacing or repairing two-component spray foam. You could save potentially 70% depending on your project, or even more. I'm not sure. This was just my own example. So I just want to say thank you again for joining the webinar. If you weren't able to join and you're watching the recording, I appreciate that as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm sure you should have my email address. So I appreciate you joining and taking the time to watch the webinar. Hope you have the rest of your day goes well, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. So thank you very much.